Welcome Bitcoin friends, it's Bitcoin Mamo. Today we're going to do some Bitcoin TA. We'll look at different time frames and we'll also look at the hash ribbon, which has just flashed a buy signal. We'll look at the history with the hash ribbon. We'll also look at the golden cross death cross and possibly when the next golden cross is going to happen. So if that sounds interesting, stay tuned and let's get into the charts. I just want to start here on the daily chart for Bitcoin. And we have had quite a nice run here. We had this one decent pullback and got a nice bounce, and we've gone all the way up to 45,000. And if we just look at the RSI here on the daily, so far we are making lower highs here on the RSI and higher highs on the price. So there is a bearish divergence here. This can be undone if we do turn around and go higher than this previous high. But it's just something I'm keeping an eye on, and I wouldn't be surprised if we did get a bit of a pullback here like we did on this previous pullback. And we do also have divergence here on the 12-hour. We can see we've been making successive lower highs on the RSI or making higher highs on the price at those same points. So this divergence has been building up here on the 12-hour, and we can see the stochastic RSI has gotten quite high. Looks like it wants to come down a bit. On the 6-hour, we can see that we did make a higher high from the previous high, so that divergence isn't there on the 6-hour, although the stochastic RSI is starting to come down. And the 4-hour also didn't have this divergence with the previous high, but we can see the stochastic RSI is coming down quite fast here. There could just be a cool off here before we go higher, but we could also have a bigger pullback than what we've currently had here. And one reason why I think we might have a bigger pullback than what it currently is if we just make a trend line here connecting these lows. You can see we did have 3 touch points, so this is a valid trend line here, and we have opened a 4-hour candle below the trend line. And quite often when we break a trend line like this, we will have a correction back down. And to find where this correction might go to, we can use the Fib retracement tool, and just doing it from the previous pullback here to the top, we can get an idea where we might pull back to here. And I'll just switch this back to the daily chart. What we can see is the golden pocket here, the 0.618 level, is at 40,400, and it also lines up with this red trend line connecting the 2 bottoms here, and also intersects with this white trend line here, which if I zoom out is the trend line that connects the 2 tops from the all-time high here, and also the top on this previous pullback. So I think there's a lot of confluence here, and it would be nice to see us come back down and just test this major trend line that we did break here and turn it into support, and then head back higher for a new high. So there's 3 lines of confluence there. I do also have this yellow line just connecting these tops here, We did make this head and shoulders pattern here. It wasn't the cleanest head and shoulders, so I wasn't putting a massive amount of weight on it. So we could just come down to this yellow trend line. We are still quite bullish, but I think it would be quite healthy if we did come down to this golden pocket area and get a bounce at this intersection. So I am still in a trade. I got in a trade down here around 37.6, and I haven't taken any profits on that trade. What I did is I hedged it by shorting at around 44.1, and that way I don't lose the profits from not taking profits at the top on the long, and I can close the short down here and still have that nice position with the same amount of contracts. So these aren't the only points of confluence here. If we were to pull up the EMA ribbon, this is on the daily, as I said. We can see the top of this ribbon currently is at 39.3, but it is moving up quite quick, around $500 a day. So I do think over the next 3 days, this EMA ribbon will be somewhere in line with this white downward trend line. And this would also be another area that I think would act as support, as it did on this previous pullback where we bounced off the top of the ribbon. So this pullback might take a couple of days and do something similar to this pullback. We can also pull up the VPVR here off this entire bottoming trend, and what we can see is that the most amount of volume, it kicks in right about where this golden pocket is, around 40,200. We can even include this one. It is bigger than all the ones above it, and that's around 40,400. So another point of confluence here. We do have a lot of support here that we built up by being in this range for quite a long time. So all of those things are green. If I wasn't in a trade, I would go into a long trade around this golden pocket area, but I am in this current trade. I might add more to the position down here at this golden pocket. Another reason I'm confident we're just going to make a higher low here and go higher is just looking at the volume here. We can see we had this massive volume on this pump up. It was bigger than all the previous volume here when we were down the bottom. And then we did have this pullback. We see not as much selling volume here. And then this second pump up with larger volume than the pullback. So I think the bulls are in control here. One other thing I'm watching here is looking for those supply demand zones with these boxes here when we're in a certain trend and we go sideways for a bit. There's selling and buying pressure here, so it can become a level of support and resistance. And there's nothing on the daily when you look at the daily here, but this is on the 12-hour. So we can draw one here on the 12-hour using this box here and see where that lines up. And we can see it pretty much got to the top here where we have had this pullback, but we haven't broken below this box yet. So we did come down to the bottom and we have bounced at the moment. So I'd be waiting for a break off this box, which is around 43.6. And if we do go below, I'd be looking for these lower prices here. But again, if we do get above this box and use it as support, then I expect higher prices. We could also draw one of these boxes here where we had this red candle as we were in this uptrend, and this would become an area of interest as well. And this is another area that lines up with this golden pocket area. So if we do break below this box, then I think this is a probable target we might come down to. And again, that's around that 40,500 area, 40,800. And over to the Bitcoin futures chart on CME. Futures is currently closed over the weekend, and we did close the futures chart at 42,970. The top of this wick is at 43.4. So if we did open higher, we would have a gap here and a possibility of filling that gap anyway. So I think it's not too bad if we open the Monday without making a gap here. And we did have this gap down here that we never filled. And again, we don't have to fill these gaps, but a lot of times they do get filled. But we also have gaps lower down here that never got filled also. So they don't have to be filled. we were getting close to this gap higher up here, which is at 46.7 approximately to 48.3, 48.4. So there are a few gaps on the chart, but again, I think we'll come down to that golden pocket area I spoke about and then push higher and try for this gap. Looking at the VPVR here on the futures chart, and what we can see is the point of control here is around 38,830, but we see the support on the volume kick in here around 40,100. So a similar thing to the spot price chart, we do have that support with the VPVR. And another thing to note, we had that daily bearish divergence building and the 12-hour bearish divergence on the spot chart, but on the futures chart here, we don't have that divergence. So we did make a higher high on the daily. So a bit of contradiction there. The 12-hour, however, does have the divergence present at the moment. But again, we could come up higher here still. And we just have to wait for the futures chart to open and see where this RSI moves to. The stochastic RSI is still quite low on the 12-hour on the futures chart. And the daily EMA ribbon on the futures chart does look a little bit different here. The yellow line is still below the red line, so it hasn't flipped. But we'll have to see how it opens at the start of the week. So it's good just to keep an eye on both these charts. Onto the weekly chart here. And we can see we broke out of this falling wedge pattern. We had this big move upwards, and on the weekly we are below this trend line when looking at the bodies, but of course we open the new week, and to open above this trend line we would have to be above 42.4, and this is just good to get a bigger picture here. Just got these blue dotted trend lines, and this just shows where the volume on the VPVR for the overall price action, so including this area as well, where that support starts to come in, and we can see it's at around 41,030. So if we did have a pullback, like I said, I don't think it will be a big pullback. We have all this support here, and just looking higher, the resistance on the VPVR starts to kick in around 46.4. And this would also be around the 0.5 level on the overall retracement here. And again, we are above this EMA ribbon here, which is very bullish on the weekly. And also that stochastic RSI has only just started coming up on the weekly. So though we might get some pullbacks on the daily, I think the weekly will carry us through more longer term and keep on with this bullish momentum to the upside. A great way to simplify the price action here is to look at the 2-week chart, and when we do that we can just see these 3 main zones where we look at that trend and where we went sideways. So supply and demand zone on the 2-week, and we can see we stayed in this for a long time down here. Once we got above it and closed above it, then we had this big move up, and we came exactly to this next box here where we had this red candle, and that's where we've gotten resistance currently around that 45.4 level, and the top of this box is at 48.6. So this would be a key area to get above. I think we might move into this box and test this area, and if we are able to close above it, then I would be aiming for this next box up here, which is more in the mid 50,000 area. Just an easier way to look at the price action here. It does really simplify it. And back on the daily, just looking at the moving averages. So the darker yellow and darker red here are the 50-day moving average in yellow and the 200-day moving average in red. And these lighter yellow and red ones are the same ones but exponential moving averages. And what we can see is we came up to that 200-day moving average. It's acted as resistance currently. So it would be good to see Bitcoin get above this and start using it as support. And we can also see with the exponential moving averages here, we are almost getting a golden cross between these two. It might take all of next week before we do see that cross. So just want to look at the hash ribbon indicator. We talked about this not long ago in the previous videos, and we did get this buy signal on the indicator, and this is on the BTC USD all-time index chart, and it's not present on some other exchanges, but I think once it's on one, it's not far away to appear on the other ones. So just going to have a look at some other times where we did get this buy signal, and in particular I want to look at when we've had a death cross and then we've gotten this buy signal with a potential golden cross on the other side. So if we just go back here, we can see we did have a few buy signals here in this bull run on the way up. We had one here when we were at 9,000. We also had one here around 18,000. Both of these were pretty good buys here. We can dip lower after getting the buy signal. This is a good example here. After the stock market crash and we started recovering, we obviously had this death cross here, and then we did get a weekly green dot here on market cipher, similar to our current setup. And then we did get this buy signal, and quite similar here, we got above the 50-day moving average, and we got the buy signal, and we got to the 200-day moving average, and we did blast through it on this occasion. We came back and tested it, and then we carried on further here. There is also this example just before the stock market crash, and we can see we had the death cross here. We got the weekly green dot on market cipher. We also had the buy signal at the same time, and this time we were below the 50-day moving average, and after this buy signal we got above it. We got resistance at the 200-day moving average, had a pullback, and then got above the 200-day moving average, and it looked like this was the start of the bull market. But then we had that black swan event with the stock market crash, and then we had to do the whole thing all over again here with a similar setup. And just looking back further here, obviously we had this buy signal here at the bottom of the bear market that was at around 4k, and we did go lower. We did go to that 3.3 area. So going back further here, this is the 2017 bull run. We had a buy signal here, and this was at around $590. Obviously a really good place to go long, from 500-600 all the way up to 20,000. And we also had these ones here at the bottom of the bear market after the 2013 peak. We can see here we had one at around $230. We did go lower here on this occasion, but it was quite close to the macro low. And going all the way back here to 2013, we had a buy signal here at $23, and obviously we went all the way up to 1200 at the peak of the bull market here, and again we had a buy signal here at $6, and this was a pretty good entry also. The one we're focusing on is where we had that death cross and the golden cross. So this was after the $32 peak in 2011, and we had this death cross here, and then we got the weekly green dots here on market cipher, and we had the buy signal, and again we got above the 50-day moving average, got the buy signal, came up to the 200-day moving average, and we did get resistance here, and actually came back to the 50-day moving average as they squeezed together, and then we got that golden cross. And we did have one more decent dip down before we started going up on this bull run. So let's just look at those three cases that do look similar to our current setup. So here, this is the 2011 bottom of the bear market. We had the death cross here. We got the weekly green dots on market cipher. We got above the 50-day moving average. We got the buy signal on the hash ribbon indicator, and then we came up to the 200-day moving average. We did get resistance, and we got squeezed between the 50 and the 200, and then we did get this golden cross, and we did go below both moving averages again, and then eventually we did start going higher and starting the bull run of 2012-2013. The next similar case here was just before the stock market crash. We had the death cross here. We got the weekly green dot on market cipher. We also had a buy signal on the hash ribbon indicator, and then we got above the 50-day moving average. The 200-day moving average was resistance here. We did come down. Second time we broke above it, and then looked like we were going to start the bull run. We had that black swan event with the stock market crash, and then the bull run started later after we recovered. And the third example here, after the stock market crash, we started recovering. We did still get this death cross here when we're at about 7,000, 7,000 area. We came down. We got the weekly green dot on market cipher. We got above the 50-day moving average. We got that blue buy signal on the hash ribbon indicator. We came up to the 200-day moving average and we blasted through it on the first go. Came back and tested it and then carried on sideways as we started this bull run. And our current situation here, we had the death cross here. We capitulated on the hash ribbon. We got the weekly green dot on market cipher. We got above the 50-day moving average, and now we've got the buy signal on the hash ribbon. Now we came up to the 200-day moving average, and it's acting as resistance. So I do think we might do a similar thing as that other example. Maybe come down to this middle range around that 41,000, like I mentioned, and then come back up to test the 200-day moving average and break through it and carry on higher above it. So I think that's about all for today. I will make a video in the not too distant future looking at when a potential golden cross might happen on the other side. But first we do need to get above that 200-day moving average. I do expect we will get a golden cross on the exponential moving averages, the 50 and the 200, sometime next week. So we can watch for that one. But again, I think this is the main area where we might pull back to around this 40,400 to 40,800 area. The golden pocket, the intersection of these trend lines, also the VPVR support, and the daily EMA ribbon that's coming up to meet it. But first we will have to close below this demand supply box on the 12-hour that we drew, and that bottom of that box is at 43.6. So if we do close below this on the 4-hour and make our way below this yellow line, then this would be the key area to enter a long. So thanks for watching. I'm Bitcoin Mamo, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.